Samjitam Jijingu, Rikon Jingur Jandu Chata, Garan Somami Pajitam, Sayuna Rinpoche, Japidara Chamami Kala, Guradu Degi Bijan Salam, Chapsum Show, Shinji Labranda, Kungajarno Taimon, Kitan Zemi, Tamtajan, Jindamagani Jiran Jidio Samji Konjaga, Tom Bamakaru Zapati, Lolo Yunzuru, Martin Toliba, Mido, Javina, Bruno, and Dogo, and Sando, and Tobaru. And not Johnny Dolo Yunzura John, Juzano, the Jiki Company, or three on Sonoki, no good. Continue Jabola, Jean Zala, Marie Tangim Chervana, Sharakandon, number John Lami Zabla, Gorwan, Deb Rikon Generally, Mopon, and the Tabanzaya, Sorwan, Deb Jimmy Jadu, Lama, Cantola, and Jiyudan. The Jordan number of Zorwan, the only general thing is in Canton, Jafar to Jishin, Yelam, and the general thing is in Canton, Jafar to Jishin, Yelam, Jimmy Pentola, the general thing is in Canton, Jafar to Jishin, Jimmy Pentola, Zorwan, Conjito Bambo, Jinji, Sanji Canton Nayan, Sanji Cani, Loping, Lami Jalo, Dawson Doyle, Jula, Namka, Sanji G, Comono Bojito, teacher that I will cook on the Sunday, or you, Samba Sancho, the two keep at home, Jessica, Sarah, Chuna.为度化天下一切有情众生，福德无上正等圆满佛国，请大家发广大殊胜的菩提心，以及方便广大密诸神统计，并且如理如法的谛听。
Please listen to the teaching by cultivating the two aspects of supreme motivation, the vast intention of the Mahayana Bodhicitta, the vast method of the secret mantra Vajrayana, so as inevitably all sentient beings as limitless as space in the state of the unsurpassed Buddhahood.
今天呢，我们继续讲龙清心水前行引导文，引导文呢分外前行以及内前行。现在呢，我们讲到内前行。内前行里面呢，我们讲到这皈依发心、供养达拉、金刚萨埵等等。现在呢，然后我们是最后一个，不是最后一个，就是上师相应法的部分，最后一个是化法。现在我们在学这个上师相应法的部分。上师相应法的部分里面呢，也分好几个这个主题。现在主要是我们之前该观想的部分、这个修的部分都讲完了。今天呢，主要是讲这个传承上师的这个简历，这样。
So today we continue on the Gongchen Intake preliminary teaching. This teaching consists of outer preliminary as well as inner preliminary teaching. This inner preliminary teaching consists of several topics, such as including taking refuge, arousing bodhicitta, the practice of Bodhisattva, offering mandala, etc. And today we're still continuing on the topic on the teaching of Guru Yoga. The Guru Yoga is not the last topic. The last topic will be the transference of consciousness. So we are currently still continuing on the topic or the teaching of Guru Yoga. Within this teaching, it consists of several subtopics or several sections. We have finished on how to practice or engage in the practice of Guru Yoga, and today we'll be starting on the lineage of the teacher. So here it says the history of the advent of the early translation doctrine.
我也呢，今天呢是传承上师简略分3如来密意传、持名表示传、补特伽罗尔传今天呢主要就是讲我们密宗这个传承是怎么样传下来的这个部分。那这个部分的话，就基本上这下面都就是这些传承上是讲得很清楚，所以就中文的部分跟英文的部分就大家自己看好，我们就不一一的念。那我就是首先来念这个藏文的传承，然后呢在这里面的重要的部分跟大家解释一下这样。
So regarding the lineage of the translation, or here the history of the advent of the early translation doctrine, this consists of the 3 types of the lineage, or 3 of the types of lineage that's being transmitted throughout. So here's the first one, the mind lineage of the conqueror, and the simple lineage of the Bodhicaryavatara, and then the third one will be the hearing lineage of the ordinary beings. So regarding this section, that since it's very self-explanatory, has been the teaching, the words itself, or the teaching itself has been described very clear and detailed in terms of the content. In terms of English and Chinese, you can just read it yourself. So we will not just read it individual minds, but here I will recite the Tibetan version in terms of the transmission, and then I will discuss some of the several key points regarding this section.
那在这里为什么要讲这个传承上师的这个简略呢？主要就是为了弟子能够清楚的认知密宗的这个传承的来源是怎么样。因为有很多的人他们对密法不是很清楚，不了解。然后呢，尤其是说释迦牟尼佛没有传密法，有人这样说所以就很多人不知道这个密法的来源是怎么样，传承是怎么样所以在这里呢，就把这个密宗的传承非常清楚的介绍一下当我们很清楚的知道了这个密宗的传承这个殊胜行，这些知道之后呢，就是在密宗的一个修行者可以帮助他在内心生出一个强烈的信心。原来这个传承是这么重要的，这么亲近的这么样有加持力的，从来没有断过这样下来的一个传承所以呢，当我们认知这一点的时候呢，也可以帮助我们解除一些心理的疑惑，也可以增加我们心里对这个密法的信心所以呢，在这里介绍一个传承上师的历史。当然，这里传承上师的这些历史只是简单的介绍了一下，如果要细节的话是有很多的，但是呢，这里大致上，如果你们仔细的阅读一下这个部分的话，大致上你们可以有一个概念说，原来密法是这样传下来的这个你们会清楚的。
So here, why do we have to give the teaching on terms of the lineage of the masters, or the lineage of the whole transmission of the tantric teaching, of the Vajrayana teaching? It is the purpose is for disciples or students to have a really clear understanding on the origin of these teachings, the origin of lineage, because there's actually many people that they may not understand or may not be really clear on how the lineage has been passed down, how the teaching has been transmitted. Especially there are certain people that would say that the Vajrayana teaching has not been passed down. It's not the teaching in accordance of the Buddha Shakyamuni. So thereby, by hearing or understanding the lineage transmission clearly, have a clear understanding, and this allows us to really able to develop strong devotions once we're able to understand how profound and how pure the lineage is, and how much lesson it has, the way in which that the lineage has never been seized, never has been broken. So thereby, once we're able to understand this, it really allows us to clear up any doubt or any questioning, and really increase our devotion to the teachings itself. So here in this section, there's just a brief introduction. To be discussed in detail, and there will be a lot of contents. However, overall, if you're able to read this clearly, you will able to have a general understanding on how the lineage is, how the teaching has been passed down.
The topic is Nyamba Bodhua Kibala Soviet non-jit yoga. Some solar to ambition to logic gune, Judin Sabari, Sontro Yoga, and the young Johnson Gona. Yang Angel number, Jezo, watching some Maha and the Yoga Center of Judin the Doctor. Tabi Vater something, Longo Jerry Gumbat, Rinson Diet, and Council Temple to Japan, so Longo Jera Gumbi, Japan now. Odoni, yes, no GP, don't back into Zongo. Nichi, Tuji, number of Treva, Tami Valley, Sanji, Tamchi, and Kantan, only on Tomba Skurzi, Nompe. Milli Mozambique, Kurskuna, Duki, Ringdon, Pajara, Janto, Sopsaki, Machapana, Chutanchi, Tsukton, Diagoni, Masonjum, Tuji Chimbo, rounded by Siji, Roundon, Bandit, and Savanili, Tombi Mosover, Sombana, Kurnaji, Tunju Compassion, Japan, Lopiton, Nondicity, Onto Yon, Naimi Pajava. Then go to the Kava, Madame Banala, laptop in Tampasan, so it's a little shared in the camp. Suddenly, Machapana, counter to the tomato training. Do it on Zapala, shift of the Rujuk counter Shanala, Tricutaba, Tuku, G, the Ranzato, Chapter Zamalundra, Sonji Sajata, Denichi, Tata, Mayor to choose. Jimkulu Rinpoche Puti, Jim Sanji Tapandra, Lodi Mumba, Namdans, Shitria Bayoga, Number Yoga Lasopatans, on bed, Deon Siscat, Numon to Chandrin Polo, the Redden and Nutrition, Numon Zedon, the Indian Polo, Lodi de Nutrition, Numon, the Mundarian Polo, Mumbi de Nutrition, to Chanyan the Indian Polo. They do the Ziba literature on Hongis on Batters, from Batters. 这一上午刚刚念的这个传承呢，主要是讲的是如来密意传的部分。如来密意传的部分呢，你们自己在这里念哈，你们自己看这个中文的部分。那这里主要就是我们所说的这个传承有三大传承里面的第一个传承就是这个。这里说如来密意传也好，或者是佛陀心传也好，都是一样的意思。他们是不需用以表示，或者是也不需用词句来传达这个信息他们是直接意就是相传的这样传下来，传给弟子，这就是如来密意传的。这就是出佛这个普贤王如来。然后呢，就是普贤王如来传金刚萨埵，我们所说的法身佛跟报身佛之间就是这些佛陀之间就是传法，就是如来密意传就这样传下来的。但是呢，这个就是完全超越我们想象的一个空间，因为我们根本不知道密意传到底是怎么传。但是总之而言，就是说一个上师他的心意怎么说？他想到了那个意义，或是他的一个智慧的一个信息，直接传播到弟子的一个智慧的信息相续里面去这样一个密意传，他不需用任何的词句的方式来传的，这叫做如来密意传。这样。
So here, what I've just recited for during the transmission is here it says the mind image of the conqueror. So this is the mind. So this is the first of the three types of the lineage or the transmission. The first of the three main lineage transmission. So this is the first one, which is the mind transmission or the mind lineage, or we can say as the mind transmission of the Buddha. So here, in terms of this lineage or this transmission, they don't really need any symbols or any words to pass down the lineage or to pass on the transmission. It is the mind that's been passed down using their wisdom to pass down from to the disciples and as the lineage goes on. So this is really what we refer to as the mind lineage of the conquerors. So this began from the Buddha Samtabhadra to the Vajrasattva. So it is this is simply the same as from the Dharmakaya Buddha to the Sambhogakaya Buddha. So this is something that's out of the comprehension of ordinary beings, because this is more of it's considered as the passing of the wisdom of the mind through the mind itself, and passed down from the guru to the disciples.
那释迦牟尼佛来到这个娑婆世界曾经转了三次法轮3次法轮的时候呢，我们所说的就是说因乘的就是经论律，及密乘的就是外部的就是事部行部瑜伽部这是释迦牟尼佛真实传的法然后就是这里说调伏贪惑对治法，佛说律藏2万1，调伏嗔心对治法，佛说经藏2万1，调伏痴心对治法，佛说论藏2万1，调伏三毒对治法，佛说密藏2万1所以呢，我们所说的佛来到这个世界的时候，有没有传密法呢？有传密法，但是有没有广传密法呢？没有广传密法那为什么没有广传密法呢？因为那个时候的众生的根基不需用广传密法来度化，他们就是用这个密法里面的外序部的密法就可以了然后呢就是经论律三藏经典的这样的经典就可以调伏这些众生，所以就是不需用马哈阿尼阿蒂，就是说内三序的这些密法不需用在那个时候来调伏众生，所以释迦牟尼佛就没有广传。但是呢，当初释迦牟尼佛有授记说，在未来我涅槃之后的28年之后或者是多少年之后就会有什么样的这个大德，或是会有什么样的东西一些象征就来到这个世界来会广弘密法就是这样的授记。所以释迦牟尼佛传的密法就是这样。
So here, the Buddha Shakyamuni, he has came to this world and he has turned the Dharma wheels 3 times, given the teaching of the comprising such as the Vijnana, the Sutra, and Abhidharma, as well as the alternate Mantrayana, Shriya Tantra, and Upa Yoga Tantra. Shriya Tantra, Upa Yoga Tantra, as well as Yoga Tantra, and so on. And here it says that as the antidote to the emotion of attachment, the Buddha taught 21,000 sections of the Vijnana Pitaka. As the antidote of the emotion of hatred, he taught the 21,000 sections of the Sutra Pitaka. As the antidote to the emotion of bewilderment, he taught the 21,000 sections of Abhidharma Pitaka. As the antidote that subdued all 3 poisons together, he taught the 21,000 sections of the 4th Pitaka. So here, the Buddha, we can see that the Buddha, we can see that whether or not the Buddha has given out Tantra teaching. The answer is yes, he did give out the teaching on the Vajrayana or the Tantra teaching, but it was not widely spread. The reason that it was not widely spread or widely taught is because that the faculty of the sentient beings at that time did not require for this teaching, for the Tantra teaching to be widespread in order to benefit them. So thereby, by using the outer Mantrayana teachings, it was sufficing, and as well as the Sutra, Shastra, and Abhidharma. These teachings will suffice to benefit these sentient beings at that time. So they really didn't require the Maha, Anu, and Adi Yoga teachings. So, and for them at that time, the Buddha also prophesied that many years later, or 28 or many years later, that there will be a great master or a sign or prophesied that the teaching of the Tantra teaching will be widely spread. So this has been something that's been prophesied and passed down by the Buddha.
担把心中人弄担的，俺们的你们弄的，路的接到你是谁？他们生的招牌有单笔用过大概就，咱们还继续上参去，没哩，跟这个经济结婚再下来了，对总部那么人就是。当时经济学为了中级生品单比这个，俺比这个冷pin动作来说不，老难多级那个人就是，一弄单的两人的，两人的吃单，这呢弄单把当单把弄把咱们去，单把就是做，生兄弟是，马还有给就能单把，马还有给。这个呢是东北上路你是在艰难也不在了没有真兄弟，人格抗当的人不就设计了那边这也人民设计的生活节点不得蒙古等小多几个这个嘛这个你都说了的比如多几些好像他们留些呢这种小多几个了电脑的这个的电脑多几些会让这信息那边老问题敦马里边清的那种本在逻辑所以呢，这里接下来就是讲这个持名表示传这个传承是怎么来的刚刚我们讲的如来密意传的讲完了这里呢，首先是在讲这个密法我们刚刚也讲了，释迦牟尼佛受记了在涅槃之前呢，释迦牟尼佛受记说，当我离开这个世界28年之后呢。就是会有这个密法在出现在这个人间所以当初呢，就是假如在这个国王他有7种瑞相或是梦境出现之后呢，就是在这里你们这里读一下就可以了，在这里按照受记一样的，就是出现他的梦境里面这个7个这个梦兆，然后呢，在他的宫殿上面呢降落了金盘，然后呢还有密续。这个金刚手菩萨的这个佛像他一心祈祷，最后达到了这个亲自见到了这个金刚萨埵本尊，然后呢，他了悟了所有这个经体的这个含义，所以呢，就是从此以后就是这样传下来的所以这个就是我们所说的马哈瑜伽的这个传承怎么来的，就是从瑜伽国王这样传下来的，这是从33天。这个金刚手菩萨这样降下来，然后呢就是这样传承下来，就是马哈瑜伽这个传承。
So now we're on to the symbol lineage of the Vidyasaras. So we have first finished the first one, the mind lineage of the conqueror. So here we have just give the teaching on the symbol lineage of the Vidyasaras. So here we talk about, as we mentioned earlier, that the Buddha had a prophecy in terms of after he passed into Parinirvana, 28 years later, there will be an appearance of tantric teaching in this world. So here you can read here that one of the King John, this great master, he had 7 types of signs or dreams that here you can read according to the prophecies. And also on the top of his palace, there's falling from the sky the golden plates as well as tantric teachings, and also representation of the Vajrapani. And also he saw the Vajrasapani person and also able to have complete understanding or realization of all the tantric teaching. So this is the beginning, the lineage of the Maha-yoga teaching. So this is from the lineage starts from Vajrasattva and the King Ja, and this is a teaching from which it descended from the 33 heavens. So this is the Maha-yoga teaching. The lineage of the Maha-yoga teaching.
提升少法坛这些送为到过了，各地送为到过，就用去送去国家也冷知，也冷知，罗给都那么细生，年纪下来俺们讲，罗给动了三日几，这个月上到去，上个热天这的，通过他们明白到底大家们都是个月定的工作了。造成的人群只能人送的人吧，人马拉也是的，但别人讲他们那啦，都工地啦，说吧，都工把的把那说吧，送去，那时候我进去也，但那过去弄了多久，这里干不多久了，后来送去就等慢了，拍吧，马木进来说吧，送的，这到中，我进班了，通常。这都中国进单了，通常了，干了，你人班的打日，那接下来这个就是我们密宗的外三世、内三世里面的，就我们说的马哈阿地瑜伽，就是三个里面的，就是马哈瑜伽呢，就是从叫我们在这种传承下来的。安内瑜伽是怎么样来的呢？安内瑜伽的话，就是五种就是圣种五显到马拉雅山顶，他们到马拉雅山顶的时候，观想十方的诸佛，并且就是悲切的祈祷。这个五种显现的话，就是一个呢就是龙族的，一个龙族它名字叫做罗珠江措龙族的一个种姓，它们都是贤善，都是非常有这个善根的物种一个是龙族的一个叫做罗珠江措一个呢是罗刹族的，它叫做罗珠塔登罗刹族罗珠塔登然后一个呢就是反天的天人叫做罗珠塔耶。然后呢，一个是罗刹的叫做罗珠达sil然后呢，一个呢就是人的叫做罗珠格拉士就是这个五种种姓，就是这五种就是他们就在这个马拉雅神山，马拉雅山这个现在我们有很多人去朝拜，甚至在泰国的一个地方，好像是一个很高的一个山所以现在很多藏人都会到那边去朝这个圣山，因为这个是这个安利瑜伽就是从发源地就是在那里，所以他们在这个五个种姓的人在那个山顶上聚集到那个山顶上，也是一种缘分因缘，有个愿力，大家聚集在那里，就是一心的祈祷诸佛菩萨。这样的时候呢，然后就是金刚手菩萨就是从这个降临到那个山顶降临到那个山顶上，给他们传了这个或者安利瑜伽的这个法，这样。
第四个种姓是什么？
第四个种姓是罗刹的罗珠达塞。
第二个是罗刹。
对，不是，第四个是夜叉第四个夜叉，不是夜晚的夜，是夜晚，就是
晚上那个夜。
对，好像是一晚上应该是。
对，下次我说。
要三是罗珠，要三是夜叉，是不是？
对。
是罗珠达塞。
那最后一个人是？
人是罗珠拉氏。
Okay, so here, this is the lineage teaching of the inner tantric teachings, such as we are covering the Maha Yoga, Ani Yoga, as well as Adi Yoga. So as we mentioned earlier, the Maha Yoga origin came from the Master King, Great Master King Jia. And how did the Adi Yoga teaching origin? So it came from here, says the transmission of the Adi Yoga came from the 5 excellent ones of sublime nobility. So here they all these 5 beings, they came to the mountain Mount Malaya, and then they pray wholeheartedly to the for blessing of the Buddhas and Bodhisattva. So in terms of the 5 excellent nobility or the 5 castes, the first one is the Naga, one from the being a Naga being, Lodro Jetso. These 5 beings, they're all really they're all beings with a really excellent faculty as well as nobility. And then the second one is come from the Rasha beings, so they're called the Lodro Dempton. Yes, and then the other one is this. The second one is from the Rasha beings, these Rasha beings, Lodro Dempton. And then another one is from the Brahman or the heavenly being. And then the fourth one is the Yaksha, Lodro Dempsey. And then the fifth one is human one, which is Lodro Lapship. 那个天人是什么？
长板叫做Lodro Tayin.
Sorry, excuse me. The one from the heavens, Lodro Tayin. So now they all have gathered together in the Mount Malaya, and then this mountain is actually located in Thailand. So right now, currently, there are actually many Tibetans that wish to take pilgrimage there because that's where the origin of the Honor Yoga has been began. So here are the 5 nobility, the 5 castes, the 5 beings from these 5 types of castes or classes. So they have all gathered together. This is really a auspicious or karmic connection, and they were able to gather and really have this genuine aspiration and pray wholeheartedly through the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas interactions. And then at that time, the Lord of Secret, Vajrapani, appeared in front of them and then bestowed them the teachings of this Honor Yoga teaching. So this is the origin of the Honor Yoga teaching.
除此之外呢，这个密主金刚，也就是金刚手菩萨，又到西方乌音刹土拉那波萨州为这个吉喜金刚宣讲了就是吉祥密训上面的吉密义序或者吉祥密训，这些都是属于是阿耨瑜伽的坛传所以呢就阿耨瑜伽的坛传都是由金刚手菩萨，或是我们通常会说密主金刚手，所以它是传密法就是到人间的所以呢就是金刚手菩萨传下来的这样。
And also, the Lord of Secret Vajrapani, he also went to the western land of Oriana and he gave teaching to the great master Rinpoche. The tantric teaching, including the Sutra of Condensed Meaning, as well as the Tantra of the Secret Essence. These two are also the tantric teaching of the Honor Yoga teaching. So we often say Lord of Vajrapani is the Lord of Secret, is because he is the one who gave the teaching of the tantric teaching to this world. So thereby the Honor Yoga teaching has been passed down by Vajrapani.
Chapter Mangal Arda Yogi Tambasham Tunas, Tombo, Hayat Tati, the young Simchis Taxum, Hayonina, Tadeva Zampum, Las Yilla Chibi, Vernadiatan, Yogi. Cheva Kangan, Bosishava, Jirdazani, go to just a chapter of Ashanti. Santan Jikombana, Stupon, Dojon, Doji Balaga was. The not have the single change, Josso. Tell you with the Chumolungu, Remitive meeting, Serva Berta, Wazir Shochin Trudy, Wazir Tabatuku, Semjin Lapola, City. Wolf took the Tambarmi, Niba Chamba, Chamjuton, Columdon, Simcher, Medbar, Shibami, Samba Namkin Yuta, Ani, Runga Lotta, Shoni, Loka, Sarah, Woody, Samami, Ziba Namkrafton, Radni Kapo Jani, Dirty Chava, Stockton, Noxerton, Rinpoche. Newcodon, Metodon, River Tamche, Tixila, Rajipami. Number Te Yombola, Depi, Te Yombo, Gogoke, Puba, Emaho, Yombo, Stormy Tambashongi, Gary Turatism, 相知心，三智王修，罗给不明就，他们今切切的我才切记送的，人当过呢，上节谈起就公办论题，加切，加切到时候，一般呢，在谈起我的地上，都见是真的就比到时候，上班呢，但是路门写上，单比中米。是比到说日本人生阿弟，这是气运牛毛比操纵这种，说明这个阿弟他把自己这比到说，用就是生计谈起理念，或者多些想法了更多，人情知己谈谈吧，这是工作，如果是你说明的一方两个人做，基于各位日本的啥都特干，人不清。Rambar Chinkulu Shanti, Durji Sinhala, Tati, this Kato, Nimid Isha Songipun, Shamit to Mid Yesandi, Oma Chimbo Topi Nam, Tom Deeping Kula Tamper G, Kuri, Simha Durji Shapa Tamchi, Bandar Sato Namkachi, Sushut Yirma Yimbala, Doko Topa Sintaka, Matolaso, Matopala Tsugoni. Sombi Toprashavi Chirupai Namju Dorji, Son Jizachi, Chinis, De Shana Dorji, Shashos, Dorji Kami, Zunga, Division Sapa, Dorja Sonala, Sopa, Dorji Runanta, Tosho Loki Kam, Rinpoche Snor, Tatangata Rinpoche Sabla, Sopa, Rani Runam, Ranta, Nusho, Tala Sopa. Bangawan, Bama Buddha, Sopa, Famir, something which have a number. Shonshu, Nando, Japa, Tatanga, Nala, Sopa, Lichi, Tamchi, Rugun Taiba, Wishu, Taton Travi, Jankan, Tatanga, Shir, Guruzana, Sopa, Division Ruchi, Jara Mongo, Namles, Masham Tambi, Umbosto, the Ronshu Gomba, Jimjilin, DP. Chu ada yogi tun nam rondo chöjang jara tamji ki gumbi chillang simchir sasum jani nabar jawi khangzong ka wurti stoko dorji tirkuba na jibi wo khangna hayeba simjin simda jagyo ba dele karwar da chindi dendushu stosum go dorji safety stang de Rinpoche bari chönkar shawna dorji jib Rana Natoli to be Duke, has the Jimshuba, Choke Simhacha, La Jatak Shu, Lopi Won, Dear Gonif Gur, Manon Trigi, Long Jib of Zhang, Dunna, Mano Anata, Tanda, Mano Mompo, Dimchi sketching the Loper Tandy, just Tambra Wonkerty, Marshal Tambi, Numbo, and Numbona, Tani Sinja Dotini. Young True comes up to taking Zano with a Jibber Jim from the Tamba Ni and how he seems to the Jibber Jibber, Jibber the Jibber. Or 这一项呢，我念的这个主要就是这个阿地瑜伽，阿地瑜伽就是我们所说的大圆满阿地瑜伽，就是这样这个法是怎么样传承是怎么样来的？这样，首先呢，阿地瑜伽是在天界在33天的天界供养的在天界供养的时候呢，也是一个天人的天子，但是这个天子很殊胜、很特别的一个天子他就是有这样的一些因缘，所以呢，因为他具足一些很特别的特征后来呢，也是金刚手菩萨就是到这里你们慢慢念就知道，金刚手菩萨呢特别到东南西北中央的5部佛的面前，再去确定真正的就是超越因果的这个法是什么。他去那些佛的面前再把这个超越因果的这个法的这个含义我去全部就是悟到了以后证悟了以后，就是再去确定之后，然后呢他再回到33天然后呢就把这个整个法呢就是传给这个天子然后呢就是给他了授权了所有的这个 阿底瑜伽的这个法的这个观点所以呢，就是首先是看给了他的。
So here, what I've just recited is the lineage transmission of the Adi Yoga teaching, or we commonly refer as the teaching of Dzogchen. So here, the teaching of Adi Yoga was first widespread in the heavenly realm, the 33 heaven. In that realm, there's a very special being, a heavenly son. Because of his previous karma, he has several profound quality or auspicious qualities, and thereby the Vajrapani Bodhisattva, as you read on the lineage story or the lineage account, that the Bodhisattva Vajrapani, he went to all the Pure Land, including the east, the Pure Land of the east, the south, the west, and north. And then he confirmed with all the Buddhas of these different Pure Lands to confirm the teaching, and also it was basically understand and receive, really confirm the teaching in which the teaching that was able to transcend the principle of cause and effect. So therefore, once he has able to truly understand and realize this teaching of this essential teaching, he then went to seek out this heavenly son in the heavenly realm, and he passed on all this teaching to this heavenly son, and he also gave him empowerment, basically able to engage in or have the lineage transmission of this Adi Yoga. So this is how the first transmission of the Adi Yoga first spread.
那这个是阿底yoga，在以上这个是在天界的，然后那阿底yoga到人间怎么样传下来呢？这里没有的所谓逻辑呢，加个人的说环境看入没有，但那不小了，错个体人多叫人不搞呢，没多在没差，娘个啦，对呢，也不叫不200在因。Snowser wooden money, Timo Meto, Zajisha, Meto Sanjisha, Santanga, Regasim Dom, Shansim Taban, Chiva, Yoji, and Vomit on the Raptation are given me to Junter, London, Baba Tonjon, Gilum, Nagin, Kotonchi, and Honibala, Samo Olongolo, Ayadara, Jaji, Torum Melana. 다타가다 탐친이 오줌 추디 니다니스 제바 니마 슈오니 마라탐 라다와 컴트니 야라탐바니 넘버 토바스제디 초그티 잠데 티시니 리바라 샹나도지 시절고 넘바즈그 추디 심타첸 이기 홍도 디니 디니 트바라 넘바즈르트 Namkali Vati Tushini, some had Namkala person. Song of Tree Shadi, Timu Tucker, Shin Lanson to the Hong Woodbaraju Tucker Tumti person. Timu Yamsen Jedi, Yapton Purnala, Lord Jipi, Yap Japo Yamsen, Jiti, Sanji to Raju, Shanamson, Sha Argata, Rundu, Chirenta, Teru Dumpi Namba Maple 그 로티동 특간이 도지 스틸그 원바바지 송티 제바다 지금 총창회 잡아 사요 도지동 윤르보지 사선토가 도지세와 남같이 라서 바잔돈도 잡아지 좀 대를 탐지 지디 브랜딩 참관하다비 브랜드 신동은 사라지 되는 트리스 그 타바 초고 담비 또 보시고 좀 더세 대니 탐지를 가리라 지점 상황 거지 남긴 찬용 가르고도지 집다 탐지편의 진의 지바도지 잡아도지 다 제트 동화나 프로젝트 동화나 상황 거지 무슨 순티 제트 동화나 상황 거지 무슨 순티 프로젝트 슈 Zobana sope onker nam wonam ker. Hong ke wambo nyuchela sopa jitang manno tamchi kimchi skachila sopa zet. Garbo dorji nila tampi topo onker. Tamchi nama chomzo chiwichi tampi chomber nyertachan. Kuz ter garbo dorji nit turmi sopa chimo sala kachi sanji so. Tina Jacqueline Poppy他站在对中大家对中同嘛不看那你了，跑班将会去这个站在用过这班临床用过最少还是有班，是让的说呢，班这大家就做的决定，跑班将会是你是找班了，跑班将会去用，跑班将会去用，但是人家的生活经济有错诊错个诊断，得出谁用黑金的一个。我都讲这个你呢，我都这些会知道，商业谈起就分别单品到过，第二个谈起就我可以，至于个不多一些这个就对着上的，马上单品中国都有个这些，分别的参加于去有把这些了，至于的包括用继续及龙等。其中的将会是你基本的人那个，那手机有那，而经济领地被驱动把这有个都特别的，才是把劳动工厂的做事些的，突然间，黑的拉手把等自己，我经济那个搞的顺，机动就什么新能个去更的做就，我都能实现，搞这么多就马上呢。将会是你就中了嘛，至于个人真正的这个趋势这个，突然在的呢，这年轻，我估计你把是的，什么波子，来呢，我照讲你不等就0，少不了是不出现的，来呢少当，我来是来呢没什么情况上，将会是年纪上才能那种短，至于个来到了你把是作弊。此蒙博兄弟的配备，人格进的加班上班下午两的不知在的，至于给工地，确实现在别人都办不到，今天就去领这个，去了差不多宝贝确实，总是点到的就我接送，列当盖尔没得办呢，还是弄，这会想念，我打当然咱们的感觉都被去谈就控制起来，大概用是做些。家的许多就我可以弄个办公你知道说法就慢慢就把它用的做法但这会是你就这会是你就才能达到给你我也这里上面念的这个部分就是怎么样把这个阿底瑜伽的法来到这个人间的这个传承所以我们在念这个传承的时候我们就说去跟着总不能或者这些话，这个干了多久？我们就说法身普贤如来，报身金刚萨埵，化身极喜金刚。我们念传承都是这样念下来的。所以呢，我们所说的极喜金刚就是化身的。我们在大圆满传承里面，极喜金刚是化身所以这个干了多久？所以在这里你们刚刚看一下这个历史，那极喜金刚它是虽然是有一个象征性的母亲。但是他是没有父亲的，象征性的母亲也是个比丘尼，比丘尼，所以他是从这个比丘尼的心间就是化现出来的，所以这样只有一个象征性的母亲，所以呢，他是真正把这个就是大圆满在这个人间弘扬的就是首位的第一个人就是嘎鲁多吉，然后呢，这嘎鲁多吉出生到这个人间之后。然后呢，才这个他受到金刚萨埵及其金刚萨埵以及金刚手菩萨的直接的灌顶加持传承，然后就是这样把这个所有的大圆满的法传下来。当然，他们之间就是持名表示传，还不是众生耳传，像我们这样讲话用词句，还不是，他们都是用持名表示传这样传下来。
So here what I've just recited is how the coming of Bhakti Yoga to the human realm. So when we recite the social lineage, we often begin with the Dharmakaya Buddha, Samantabhadra, Sambhavakaya Buddhas, Vajrasattva, and the Nirmanakaya Buddha, Garamdoje. Because in the Dzogchen teaching, the Nirmanakaya Buddha is Garamdoje. So here you can see from this account of the coming of the Adi Yoga, you can see that Garadoje, the lineage master, came from, had a symbolized mother, a Vishuni, or a nun, that he actually manifested from the heart center of the mother. So thereby the Garadoje was truly the first person to able to come to this world and pass down the teaching of Bhakti Yoga. And also, after he was born, he able to receive the direct empowerment teaching as well as blessing from Vajrasattva as well as Vajraparani. Of course, between them, the transmission is not that of the ordinary words, but of course through the symbolized transmission of the symbolized transmission. So this is how the first coming of the yoga teaching to the human realm.
然后在这里提到Garadoje 的弟子就是Jambar Singh，Jambar Singh 就是文殊友，我们的传承的里面是文殊友。文殊友他是曾经是这个班智达在印度的非常有名的班智达，而且他是500世的班智达，而不是只是1世的班智达，是这么厉害的一个班智达。但是呢，他还是没有办法成佛为什么呢？他虽然是班智达，但是他还停留在因果法的这个范围里面，还没有超越这个因果法的这个范围所以呢，他还是只是班智达，还没有成佛。所以呢，当时就是文殊菩萨跟他亲自授记说你现在呢还在就是在因果法的这个范围里面，你应该要去学一下超越因果法的一个法所以就给他授记到去见这个甘露多吉，就是集喜金刚去那边就是学习。文殊菩萨这样和他授记，当文殊菩萨这样授记的时候呢，他就告诉他周围的有500个班智达，就说好像听说在大那国法这个狮驼里里面有一位就是讲这个超越因果法，没有因果的一个法的一个法所以我们要不要去跟他就是辩论这样就是有些人就说因为去印度那个时候要去狮驼林是非常非常危险的一个途径，路中也有时候会遇到毒蛇啦，有些时候会遇到这个野兽等等的，但是很多那个班智达就没有去，但是有一部分的时候我们去，大家就商量，然后去见这个甘露多吉就是集喜金刚，去见集喜金刚的时候呢，他们就跟他辩论了，跟他辩论的过程当中呢，就怎么样辩论他们都辩不过他，就最后大家都辩输了。辩输了以后呢，就是这个文殊友，就是Jambar Singh就说，我们要不要就是在他的座下请他传给我们这个就是超越因果的这个法他的其他的道理就是我们已经在辩论的过程当中对他讲了一些不恭敬的词句，或者甚至是侮辱他的词句，现在要跟他请法是很不好意思，大家就商量说我们就忏悔先做忏悔这样，然后后来就有些就是绕这个集喜金刚来做忏悔，有些人就做礼拜来做忏悔文殊有了他就说，因为侮辱他的这个行动是我的舌头做的，所以呢我想把舌头割掉来做忏悔这样必须可以。他当要就是进行做这样的一个动作的时候集喜金刚就知道了，就说你割舌头是不会忏悔清净你的过患的然后呢就唯一你清净你的过患的话，你要写或者著作一本就是这个超越因果法的一个法这样才是真正的可以忏悔清净你的业障最后呢他就听从了这个集喜金刚的这个教诲然后呢就承诺就是要写这个法，然后呢就是接受他的这个忏悔的方式这样
So here we mentioned the And also as the Garbdoje came into this world, and also at that time there was another great master called the, here it says the master Manjushri Mitra. So he was actually a Pandita in India, a very well-known Pandita. And he was the Pandita for 500 lives. However, throughout his life, he was still not unable to attain the Buddhahood. And the reason is because although he was a Pandita, he had remained within the restriction or the phenomenon of the cause and effect. He was unable to transcend that and attain the enlightenment of Buddhahood. So thereby, Bodhisattva Manjushri came to him in a prophecy or dream and told him that he should seek out the teaching in which that transcends cause and effect, and thereby he should go seek out Garbdoje, the great master of the Adi Yoga teaching. So thereby, at that time, after receiving such prophecy, he then talked among his fellow men that there was this person in India where the graveyard is, and then the Garbdoje, and then he's claiming that he has the teaching which transcends cause and effect. And then he asked his fellow men whether they should go and have a debate with him and see who will win. The journey to that place is actually very strenuous. There's often many types of hazards, such as poisonous snakes, as well as other types of hazards. So thereby, not many of the other Pandita followed, but some did. And then when they have all arrived, they began, once they have read and met up with the Garbdoje, then they began the debate. However, after so many debates, none of them could win or exceed the wisdom of Garbdoje. So thereby, at that time, they have one of the followers, thereby Manjushri Mitra, asked his fellow men that, since we could not win this debate, should we just really request teaching from Garbdoje in which the teaching that transcends cause and effect. However, some of them have, they felt that they have already disrespected Garbdoje during the debate. They felt a little bit awkward or ashamed to request teaching. But then at the end, they all decided that they would just do a confession in front of Garbdoje and then request teaching. So thereby, some of them did confession, some of them circumambulated around Garbdoje, and also, in particular, Manjushri Mitra, that he told Garbdoje that in order for him to confess, he would cut off his tongue to demonstrate his confession. However, Garbdoje, realizing that, I told him that by cutting off his tongue, that wouldn't have purified the negative karma. But however, if Manjushri Mitra is able to compose a commentary based on the teaching in which transcends cause and effect, then that will be able to purify this negative karma. Thereby, Manjushri Mitra followed the teaching of Garbdoje, and then he composed, and also from what he learned, he able to compose a commentary or a teaching based on what he have learned.
Tene tui ke garam dorji dambi tonam tini kasarwa sinjin ramzan yene berdaki simla tingame pa namkhanda shukanyam yon tokton tona tenin matre jana gombayin jiusonte jamar shinin jistompi ton khunga chini stopa joba donan jamar shinin de shanje shichi mujuto konde nyamba chimburto sarvanjana yishishar jiuson Shansim Rula Sirjin Shapa Tam Trivi Gad the Papo that Zato Jamashin La Sheris and Egidian Jana Shoshi Hunter Yab Gidenton Yunis Nonsami Station from Dohan Heti Bala Tit So Runi Nala Kibarjan Lunishir Tana La on Jamashin in Jab. Lo nishirtana das to konjamal sinin tom jati zalmo atita jidon mano tom chepa to preside tutur choku topa munde jir shirson hali orjin sonjin nipa kibanjana seta anjin buma mata lojin biro zana namchi jiti te yanchi ringzin tati was 然后呢之后就是文书有之后呢就是这个 叫我是施利松哈，施利松哈是汉人来的，汉人他本来就已经学了很多这个五明这些都非常精通，然后后来呢，他就是见到了这个这个江布西年，然后他从江布西年得到了这个阿底瑜伽的所有的教法，然后呢，从施利松哈之后呢，就施利松哈传给莲花生大师加纳西扎，然后就班钦比玛梅扎刘罗扎呢这以上就是把这个阿底瑜伽的法传传下来了所以这以上的这个传承的这些呢，就叫做持名表示传这些持名表示传这以上的全部都是持名尊者。我们常常说是持名这以上的，比如说是文殊友加纳西扎然后就是布玛梅扎这些全部都是持名所以呢，这以上的就是持名表示传这样。
Which after Manjushri Mitra, there came the next the master that which received his teaching is Sri Sangha. So Sri Sangha was born in China. He was a Chinese descendant, and he was able to learn the 5 sciences as well, very well. And then then he was able to encounter Manjushri Mitra. Then he was able to receive all the teaching of the Adi Yoga. And then from Sri Sangha, then he gave the teaching to such as the Pamasambhava, and then also Jana Sutra, as well as Vilama Mitra, etc. So then thereby the teaching has been passed down. So up until this point above that we have just mentioned, these are this is the lineage of which the simple lineage of the Vidyadharas. So that all these great masters, they're actually all Vidyadharas, such as Manjushri Mitra, Jana Sutra, Vilama Mitra, etc. So they're all Vidyadharas. So this is what we have just talked about. What we just gave teaching on is the simple lineage of the Vidyadhara.
所以呢，在这里以上的这些持名尊者都是最后全部都是红光就成就都是完全金嘎鲁多吉也是没有剩下任何的就是身体就是红光的嘎鲁多吉，然后全家不的10年文殊友也是一样施利松哈也是一样的。然后加纳西扎也是一样的，比玛拉米扎跟莲花生大师是，没有说是就是缘起的这样，他们是已经是他们成就的是我们所说的就是大红光成就，大红光成就的就是说意思就是说他们的身体在活着的时候已经就是一个光了，根本就没有办法碰触到他们的身体，就是这样一个光了。所以并不是说是就把圆寂了以后，然后就是红化，然后就变成没有这样所以呢莲花生大师跟维玛目那弥扎是这样的。因为莲花生大师在来到西藏的时候，国王想就是给他他的国王想对他的那个膝盖这样碰个头就是恭敬这样。结果就是头碰不到他的膝盖，直接碰到坐垫就是莲花生大师跟这个维玛那弥扎就是活着的时候，就是已经是一个彩虹一样的，没有什么可以碰触到的东西这样所以这些都是红光成就，大红光成就所以呢，这样我们今天这里只有就是简单的讲了一下所以但是呢，我们真正的去看一下这些每一个持名尊者的怎么说就传记的话，这个时候你就会真正的很清楚的这个密宗的这些传承上是多么伟大多么了不起的。这里只是提了一个名而已，就是讲了一下他们的名字而已，但没有什么很多很细节的。好像现在中文里面不知道有没有翻译到这些持名的这个传记，但是好像英文里面我曾经如果是没有看错的，好像有一本是讲了某一个持名的一个传记之类的，所以大家可以搜寻一些这些东西，然后可以看一看这些持名的这个传记，这样可以提升 我们的这个信心，要不然的话我们现在的信息太多了，然后呢就是分别念太重了，有时候我会觉得这是不是一个就是故事一样，这个就是传说一样的，这个不是，这里面讲的这全部都是事实，一代一代的这样传下来的，这些都是事实而且传下来的一代一代这样传下来之后，这些法一代一代的传下来，一代一代的修，每一个修这个法的人都我们限量的见到他们的成就，见到了他们的成果。
So this is the lineage of the Vidyadhara. So all these Vidyadharas, they all have attained the accomplishment or attainment of the rainbow body, such as Scarf Dorje. When he passed in Parinamana, there was no remaining of his love. And as well as Ranger Sri Mitra, Sri Singha, Chana Sutra, and etc. For Vinama Ritra and Guru Hamasambhava, they didn't pass into Parinamana. They have attained what is referred as the great rainbow body, such as that while they were alive, their body had already transcended into rainbow light that cannot be physically touched or comprehended. And so thereby, there's not as if that it was an ordinary flesh and then attained, and then they have attained rainbow body. It's not the case for these two masters. When Guru Hamasambhava came to Tibet, the king the Tibetan king who tried to show his respect, had tried to bow his head and to touch the knee of Guru Hamasambhava. However, when he tried to do so, his head went straight to the cushion because the body, the physical form, has already transcended into a rainbow-like light. So thereby, Guru Rinpoche, they all have attained the accomplishment of the great rainbow body while they were still alive. So here, what we have just talked about, this is really in a brief in terms of the accounts or the biography of these great masters, Vidyadharas. So if you're able to really able to read the biography or accounts in detail, you're really able to have a really clear understanding how great or how profound these great lineage masters are. Here we just kind of briefly mention the names, but not in much details. I'm not sure if the Chinese version has have a biography of translated, but I believe there's in the English there's a biography of translated in English that the Vidyadhara that you can read. You guys can search and read on the accounts of the biography, and really by understanding and learning these accounts to develop a devotion or strong devotion. Because now there's really too much information available around us. Sometimes we may question whether or not these accounts are simply fictional or not stories, but these are actually really true accounts, and to which accounts has been passed down from generation to generations. And as well, not only the accounts, but also the teachings that has been included also has been passed down from generations. And also all the people who actually took on this actual practice, really engaged in practice, have also attained the same type of results as well as the same accomplishments.
这以上呢，就是主要是大圆满的法，怎么样传到人间？人间里面也是这以上全部是在印度的一个过程，传到印度的一个过程。然后之后这个大圆满法怎么样传到西藏来的呢？这里我的看法真的有的是宁波丹巴这个丹呢，完全的人是比起我有的是没。如果没办法，其实包括这类的就至于这个做成的你的民族切的这样全面功能后面国民家庭的有的这个就叫我们家把它这是用从把的更老谈起能把人对吧线下没得了一对吧这大概是对的Yapchi the Roman civilization today took on by Charles the state on the Narsambana should took on by Wonki Kanjati what you the shooting as a country 公内四十因这边那么子母这边那么就他能年他们这些年个啥都可能吃素的混的那所的也不来那个年吃咱不是找的上学生这半年他就知道所以呢这里就是首先就是讲这个西藏的历史，西藏简单的历史就是西藏的这个国王的来源。首先西藏整个藏区是没有国王，就好像一个很以前的印第安一样的，就是可能就是每一个地方就是地方自己有一个团队这样西藏的地也很大，然后就各个地方就是自己这样。后来呢，就是印度的一个国王生了一个孩子。生了这个孩子呢，他的手指中间跟脚趾中间都是跟那个水压一样的连接起来的，然后就觉得这是个怪物，然后他们就是长大了以后呢，就把他送走了送走到这个西藏的边境，就不管他了，然后他就往西藏的方向走，往西藏的方向走的时候呢，就是遇到了几个游牧民族。然后就是问他你是从哪里来的，他也不会讲，可能就是这样往天上指，然后大家就以为他是从天上来的，所以觉得这个是从天上来的，可能是我们西藏人的一个就是派给我们西藏人的一个福报，就叫他当西藏的国王，这个nha智赞国，这是我们西藏国王的第一个叫做nha智赞国。然后呢，当地的人全部就用这个头顶上扛这个石头，然后就去这个法座给他去这个法座，然后呢就是把他就称为就是西藏的国王，这是第一个国王。其实他呢就是除盖藏菩萨的化身其实他是除盖藏菩萨的化身。以前西藏的很多的国王都是菩萨的化身。除盖藏菩萨的化身、文殊菩萨的化身、观音菩萨的化身等等很多的这样。这个第一个西藏的国王虽然是出生在印度，他的父母亲把他就是送走，但是呢，他是真正的说他是除盖藏菩萨的化身，因为他的愿力，他需要到西藏来所以呢，就是这些因素表面上看起来看不出来，但是真正意义上是这样所以他就到了这个西藏。就当了西藏的第一任国王。
那个除盖藏的菩萨藏文，
除盖藏
我不知道，所以我看清楚。
除盖藏的话就是这般难写，
So here, this is the brief history of Tibet, how the origin of the Tibetan kingdom came. So in which it first discussed the first king of Tibet, how it began. So in the beginning, there was really no kingdom in Tibet. It was really a primitive land. It was just like the Indian tribes, there were just several tribes in the vast land. And then at that time, there was the king in India. He born a son. The son, when the son was born, his hands and feet were just all interconnected together, just like a duck. So when the son was born, everybody thought there was this monster, and then they all decided to send him away. So they decided to send him away to the Tibetan border. And as his son began to wander into Tibet, he encountered many shepherds, and they asked him where he's from. So when they asked him where he was from, this prince or this person, he just pointed to the sky. So then the shepherds thought he was actually God, that he was someone who came from heaven, descended from heaven to basically take lead of the Tibetan people. And then so thereby he became the first king, Namse Tsampo. And then as the many locals began to carry stones and constructed his throne for him, and they claimed him as a king. Actually, he was actually an emanation of Bodhisattva Drimed Namse. I don't know the English name, and the Tibetan name is Bodhisattva Drimed Namse. Actually, throughout the history of many kings of Tibet, many of them are actually manifestations of Bodhisattvas, such as Manjushri, etc. So thereby, because of the Bodhisattva's aspiration, he appeared in this world as this deformed human being, but he was actually able to go to Tibet and then take upon the throne and became the first king of Tibet.
就是刚刚这个国王叫做什么坚坐王，坚坐王就是大家都是从肩膀上扛石头给他修建这个宝座，所以呢就是坚坐王，就是人家是赞钵啊。他当这个坚坐王之后，就是很多代之后，呢，就是出来一个他的子孙叫做他托着，他是普贤菩萨的化身，普贤菩萨的化身，那个英文里面应该有。泡把根子中国之外啊，就是根子中国普贤菩萨的化身叫做他托着念真啊，他出生了他出生了之后呢，就是我们所说的藏地的这个佛法就是的起源就是从这里开始啊，就是他托着啊，就代表就问你是他就是真正佛法的起源这样。
So here, so as we referred earlier, that's now the next example, or referred as the king of throne on the shoulder. He was the first king of Tibet, and then after many generations came one of his descendants called Lama Nansen, who was actually an emanation of the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. When he took reign, it was the time in which really referred as the beginning of the Buddha Dharma in the Tibetan region. So.
然后第二接着俺呢，跑把建立自己这个，而且不中山跟不兄弟，谈的当样的就走了空难的，他是走了空上，就在这里个这把，而且在工作中，周末创业期这把，俺你的车子呢你，看的是比如总是就我能把你现场。Thomas Sambodara, Sopa, Igi Mepana, Igi Tumoto, the Jagger Panchata, I repeat again that the Lodi Puputana, Sopa, giving both Jarbo and some tree again. Akarmata, Java Street, Jagger, must not be Jarbo, Jagger, Long, and Sam Sibio, Long Santal, 30 Longo, Kong, the Russian Papa, and children of Jan, passive. Ainsi, justice à chapter de papage, le Japon de l'Iran la santé tabac tous. 我想之后呢，就是又过了几个朝代之后就文殊菩萨的化现。我们大家都知道，就是藏地最有名的一个非常有名的国王，就是松赞干布国王。松赞干布的国王的时候呢，就大量的就是将这个佛法就是在藏地开始弘扬了，他也就做了很多的翻译。我们藏人在这个之前，松赞干布之前是没有文字的，没有自己的文字的那这个之前的话，就是跟其他的国家有什么沟通的话，就是用他们的文字，用他们的文字跟他们沟通，这样我们自己没有真正自己的文字。然后呢，在中藏干部的时候呢，他就有我们的托米松波扎是创造或是这个藏人的文字的人，就是托米松波扎这样所以呢，在这个时候，中藏干部就是建立了藏人的文字，也是印了很多，翻译了很多，就是经从印度翻译过来等等，就是在这个里面你们看这个就已经有讲了。他说这里说是真实 国王松赞干布时期是真实地树立佛教之法传就是真正的把佛法是树立在藏地的时期是中赞干布国王的时候。
And here, after several generations, one of the most renowned king, King Zongzang Kampo, he was actually an emanation of Bodhisattva Manjushri. And it was also during his reign that really the Buddha Dharma became, the teaching of Buddha Dharma really began to widely propagate. And many of the doctrines Buddha teaching had been translated into Tibetan. Before this dynasty, this reign, there was really no wording system in Tibet. To communicate with other nations.
Oh,
excuse me, sorry. And later, King Zongzang Kampo was actually emanation of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Sorry, excuse me on that. And then, so before his dynasty, there was really no wording system for that. To communicate with other nations, it would be just using their specified language or words. However, this king, King Zongzang Kampo, he was able to send one of the person, Domi Sambota, to learn language and compose a system of Tibetan words. And thereby, by using this Tibetan wording system, he was able to translate many of the Buddhist teachings and then into Tibetan. So you can see from this account in this section that this is where the time when really Buddha Dharma began to have foundation in Tibet.
这个时候不但是佛法真正的就树立在藏地，而且在国政上也是在藏地非常兴盛的一个时期。中赞干布国王的时候，那个时候藏地的中赞干布国王他从尼泊尔的边际有很多都是属于是藏地的地区，在印度的从恒河这边也是属于藏地的地区，然后从汉地的话，易雅安好像那个时候跟这个汉人打仗打到西安，然后当西安的那个时候国王都从这个皇宫逃掉的时期，就是那个时候是中赞干布国王的时候就是跟汉人打仗的时候呢，就这个那个时候是唐朝是好像就好像唐朝哈，就是从就是从皇宫里面都逃走逃走的时期，就是中赞干布国王的时候，所以那个时候就是藏地的不管是佛教也好，就是国政也好，是最兴盛的一个时期。
So not only the Buddha Dharma began to take a really strong foundation at that time, but also the kingdom's influence was very wide. The kingdom's borders stretch all the way to the borders of Nepal, as well as reaching the side of the Nile River of India, and as well it also reaches the region in China during the parts of Xi'an, in which there was a battle that ensued between the emperor of the Tang dynasty, which the emperor escaped at that time. So this is really the time of the King Zongzang Kampo. It was really the time that not only Buddha Dharma had really began to take strong foundation, but as well as the overall kingdom's influence was really propagating and successful at that time of reign.
所以比如说现在的尼泊尔的有很多的地方，他们那边的人，然后他们那边的那些人的这个怎么说，生活方式各方面跟藏人完全一样，就是那个时期然后在印度的有些边界，现在说所谓的拉达这些地方也是藏人，现在拉达那些地方跟印度的人种是完全不一样，跟尼泊尔那边的有些地方的边境那些也是跟尼泊尔的人种完全不一样的，那些就是以前松赞干布国王的时候，那些都是属于是藏地，属于是藏人，所以就这边居住下来，然后后来我不知道就是有怎么样分到尼泊尔了，分成那个印度，然后就那当地的人就是直接在那里生活下来，这样留下来的。印度也有，藏地也有，然后还有不丹这些都是一样的。
So, for example, there are actually currently many of the areas of Nepal, that some people, some of the inhabitants, their lifestyle is actually really similar to the Tibetan lifestyle. And as well as the regions of India, such as the Lata, they're actually the inhabitants there, the people there, they also adopt a similar Tibetan lifestyle. And these are all because during the time of the King Tsongkhapa, during that time of his reign dynasty, the Tibetans have settled there and began living there, taking residence there. So this also included some Bhutan as well, etc.
那个时候就是我们所说的松赞干波国王的就是2个妻子，文春公主跟尼泊尔的公主，2个公主，然后在同时是那个释迦牟尼佛的诞生像，九五佛都是那个时候引进到藏地的。
And also, it was during the time of King Tsongkhapa that we all really know the 2 renowned princesses, the Winchen princess from China, as well as the Nepal princess. They came and took marriage with the king, and as well as he also invited the jewel Buddha, the representative of the Buddha Shakyamuni. It was also occurred at that time during his reign.
我想今天我们就讲到这里了。我本来想把这个讲完，好像还蛮多的讲不完的。
So we will stop here today. I wanted to just finish up the section, but it seems like there's still a lot more of the contents. So we will stop here for today.
接下来还有10几分钟，大家有什么问题要问的话，我们就先有好几个课都没有什么提问问题的时间了，今天就提供一下提问问题的时间好了。
So now we have 10 or more minutes, 10 minutes or so left. If you get any questions, we can have a Q&A. We have previously there was not enough times, but now if you have any questions.
就法本里面经常见到他们介绍说那个玛哈阿努阿底这3个瑜伽的话，对应的是不是一个那个升起次第、圆满次第跟大圆满次第，是不是这样对应还是怎么样的？
So the question is that we have often seen in the teachings or sadhanas that the Maha, Anu, and Adi yogas, do they correspond to the teachings of generation, completion phase teaching, and as well as the Dzogchen teaching?
对，是这样的。我们所说的玛哈瑜伽，它主要讲的是升起次第的部分，然后玛哈阿内瑜伽是圆满次第的部分，阿底瑜伽是大圆满的部分。
And the answer is yes, the Maha Yoga teaching focus on the generation phase practice, the Anu Yoga focus on completion phase practice, and then the Adi Yoga focus on the Dzogchen teaching, the Dzogchen practice.
这位文殊有这位祖师是不是有点奇怪？他既然做了一个梦，梦见文殊菩萨叫他去请法，可是他就带来去跟人家辩论。
他这个不是梦，他是亲自文殊菩萨在受记的，亲自文殊菩萨在受记。
怎么讲都是蛮奇怪的。
The question is, one of the Vidyadhara Manjushri Mitra, he seemed kind of weird. He was able to encounter a Manjushri in person, in which Bodhisattva Manjushri told him exactly to request teaching, and yet he went from Garbhoja, and yet he went to Garbhoja and decided to debate with him. I find that a little weird.
从表面上看起来的确是这样的，好像有点怪。文殊菩萨给他授记，他还去辩论。但是呢，我想可能从其他的意义上的话，可能他想带更多的其他的道友，能够就是跟这个集体金刚接触，然后度化他们，这样可能是这样，这是有可能的，因为这个是可能还有很多很多的意义含义的，应该是这样。对，表面上看起来真的就是有点奇怪，受记了还去辩论这样，但他自己内心真正应该不是这样的意思。
And the answer is yes. From the surface, it does seem kind of weird in which Bodhisattva Manjushri told him to seek teaching, and yet he went on to decide to go to have a debate. However, from the other perspective, it could be that he wanted to take one of his Dharma friends to able to make a Dharma connection with God Doje and receive teaching and become liberated. So that's something that is possible. And there may be more significance to it, but although yes, on the surface it seems like although it has been prophesied, and yet he still went to debate. So, but that may most likely not his actual meaning. There may be more significance to it.
Yeah.
如果说想请问一个问题，因为一般人家都讲说，学密法是比较上根器的，可是又说末法的众生就是比正法的时候更不具弟子相。那这样子的话，不是这个修法就好像有点冲突，因为说密法是在在比较末法的时候会兴起这样。
OK， 这个很好的问题。
And the question is that we all say that for people to learn, the people that are able to, or the students that are able to engage in the tantric teaching and practice, are the students with more sharp faculty. However, this also has been taught that in the time of the generative time right now, sentient beings have less of the qualities of that of the students, that of disciples, than the time of the Buddhas. But then doesn't this conflict? But we just refer that in the generative time, the teaching of the tantric teaching will be even shine even more, even propagate more. So can you explain on this kind of the contradiction?
这个我们要从不一样的角度去分析。第一个是用这个大圆满他自己的这个功德和他自己的本身的加持力上要去分析一下。怎么样去分析呢？大圆满的功德和他的加持力是我们所说的九乘法里面最顶尖、最殊胜的。所以举一个例子，就是我们所有的药物里面，药性最强那个药，好像就是这样。就是大圆满就是这样。从这个角度来讲的。然后呢，众生的角度来讲的话呢，是五毒黑暗的时候，众生的五毒是最强的。所以众生的五毒最强的时候呢，就是等于说我们他的就是贪嗔痴慢疑邪见等等都是最强的时候，跟以前来比的话，现在是最强的时候。那在这样的过程当中呢，不一定说是众生的这个五毒强的时候，就不一定这些人就是完全不是上等根基，也不一定。虽然强，但是在这个其中也有上等根基的人，也有上等根基的。但是呢，从众生的这个五毒很形盛的过程当中，要下药的话，要来解决这个毒的药的话，一般的药没有办法要治好这个病，这个是很严重的病所以没有办法治好这个病。那唯一要怎么样子药才可以治好这个病呢？就是要很强烈药性这个东西。这是什么呢？这就是大圆满法这就是大圆满法。然后你刚刚你讲的说末法时代的众生不是大圆满的根基，这个好像我不知道你是在哪里听到的，这个没有这样的说法。末法时代的众生不是大圆满的根基，没有这种说法，我没有听过这样的说法。但是末法时代的众生烦恼重五毒更形盛，有这样的说法，但这个不代表它不是大圆满的根基。
So this is actually a really good question. We need to analyze this from different perspective. So in terms of the perspective in which the quality as well as the blessing of the Dzogchen teaching itself, it is the most, in terms of its quality and blessing, is the most profound or the highest of most of the 9 vehicle teaching. So to give an example, in terms of all the medication, this is the most potent, the most effective medication in terms of which we refer as the Dzogchen teaching. So this from that perspective. In terms of the sentient perspective of the sentient beings, yes, at this time, the degenerate time, the sentient beings, the 5 poisons are the most severe among sentient beings in this degenerate time, such as desire, hatred, ignorance, wrongview, etc., etc. They are the most severe. The 5 poisons are the most severe at this time, and during this process. However, during this time, although they're in terms of the 5 poisons are strong, then it doesn't mean that the sentient beings may not be of the high faculty or strong faculty. So yet, although thereby it means that although sentient beings have the most severe 5 poisons at this time, but yet there are still some sentient beings with really sharp or very profound faculties. So thereby, in terms of this time, however, if we were to look at this time which the 5 poisons are most severe, the mental afflictions, so thereby no ordinary medication can able to cure these 5 poisons at this time, in which so thereby the only potent medication that can cure these 5 poisons of sentient beings at this time is the medication of the Dzogchen teaching, or the Dzogchen teaching itself. And then you mentioned earlier that you heard that the sentient beings of the degenerate time are not the faculty of Dzogchen. I'm not sure where you heard that, but there's really no such saying. I have not heard this before. However, it is true that in this degenerate time, the 5 poisons and the mental afflictions are the strongest among sentient beings. But that does not mean that they are not of Dzogchen faculty.
Mm-hmm. 有个问题，那今天讲了3种，一个是意传，一个是表示传，一个是二传啊。那所以表示是不是这3种是佛法的传递间的差别？那像如来密意传，就是他是不说话的，如来在没有说话之中传出法来。那持名表示传，我就不知道他是怎么传的。那普特伽罗二传好像是口耳之间的相传。那所以就对第2种是不是说？像昔日星哈，或者是文殊有，或是他们之间的传递学习法的方式是不一样的，是不是这样来做区别？我想说这3种传这样子，第2个、第3个。
So the question is that we have learned the 3 lineage of transmission that's been passed down for tantric teaching: the lineage of the mind, the lineage of symbol, the lineage of hearing. So I'm not really sure when they say symbol, I'm not sure what it means. So what is it that differentiates in terms of these 3 lineage? In terms of how the lineage has been passed down?
持名表示传的意思就是，我举一个例子，当然不是这样，但是呢，就是举一个例子啊，我们就是比如说不要说话的意思。这只是一个动作，一个表示，但是你马上就知道这个的意思就不能讲话，这样的意思，对不对？这样就是让你不要，就停下来，等等的。表示传就是它是一种就是标记，或者是一种就是就是一种动作，让你悟到那个意思。是这样，可以这样理解。它不是佛陀的心意传，也不是用口耳相传的方式这样。
So the answer is that in terms of the symbol lineage of Viradhara, for example, of course it's not the actual case of transmission, but for example, if I put my finger on my lip is an action that means do not talk, etc. So the hand language means to, if you put your hands around, it means to stop. So it's actually a symbol or an action that allows you to realize the meaning that's meant intended to be transmitted. So thereby, it's not through words.
动声耳传就是口耳相传，就像我们这样。
And then the lineage transmission of hearing, just like how the understanding means communicating with each other through words.
因为仁波切，所以说所谓的密藏是这样，或者请问密藏跟密续部是一样的吗
？OK。
那严格来讲，它并不是释迦牟尼佛亲口所说的，是吗
？OK。
那个密藏是什么？就是密藏是
经律论，然后还有密。
OK， 就是密续的状况。
对，密藏跟密续是一样的。
对，是一样的，对的。所以你的问题是说，它不是释迦牟尼佛亲口所说的。The question is, we are just learned that the tantric teaching. So from this the class we learned that. So the tantric teaching did not come from directly from the words of Buddha Shakyamuni. Is that correct?
密续部里面的一部分是释迦牟尼佛亲口传的。我们今天早上讲的就是外三续，像《十轮金刚》密续部，它是密续的。然后就是这个还有什么集行金刚不是？我想不起来。就是这些是释迦牟尼佛传的，释迦牟尼佛传的只是部分，就是一点点密续，但是没有广传。所以他就是受记说广传以后回来，当我离开这个世界28年以后，就会广传密法掉。那个时候释迦牟尼佛快要圆寂之前一点点的时候，涅槃之前一点点的时候，他就遇到这个叫恩扎波的国王了。恩扎波的国王接见这个释迦牟尼佛，然后就是说给释迦牟尼佛说跟我传一个法。然后佛陀就问到说。佛陀当然知道，明明知道他的这个根器是上等根器，他就说：“那你就出家吧。”然后国王马上就回答释迦牟尼佛说：“如果是要远离这个欲望的五欲而要解脱的话，我不愿意。如果你有一个不用离开五欲而可以解脱的法的话，请你传给我。”释迦牟尼佛马上就，当然之前也知道，就是迅速。就确定他是上等根器的人，所以给他传了密法。释迦牟尼佛就传的十轮金刚。
Okay, so the answer is that in terms of the tantric teaching, some parts of the tantric teaching were taught by Buddha Shakyamuni himself, such as
Kala Chakra.
Such as the Kala Chakra teaching, as well as the other tantric teaching, the Kala Chakra Tantra, as well as other tantric teachings. So he only gave a small amount, and then he prophesied that in 28 years after he passed away, there will be a widespread of tantric teaching. And right before Buddha passed the Parinirvana, he encountered this king Enjampo. And the king, when he met up with the Buddha, he requested Buddha to give him teaching for liberation. Although the Buddha knew this king was a student of utmost high faculty, yet Buddha still asked the king to just simply, not simply, but the Buddha asked the king to take the route of which to become a monk, to take monastic vow on the path of liberation. However, at that time, the king rejected and said that if he were to leave the 5 desires to seek liberation by leaving the 5 desires, then he would not do that. So thereby, he requests the Buddha that if there's a way or a method or a path in which he can continue to enjoy the 5 desires and then become liberated, he requests that teaching be given to him. And at that time, Buddha realized that, understanding that this king is a student of high faculty, and thus gave him the teaching of the tantric teachings.
所以这个密法在印度是没有广传的，佛陀传的这个小乘因果法，我们说的因果法在这个印度是广弘的因果法。完了密法的话，后来就是甘露多吉、须雷松哈啦这些传下来，这些都是基本上都是传了这个法之后，就在一个很隐秘的地方实修。 就是这样的，没有说是像现在这样就是网红的这个密法。真正密法网红是在西藏，到了藏地以后才比较慢慢的是网红这个密法。
So thereby, the tantric teaching was not widespread in India at that time. It was the teaching of Hinayana, the teaching of cause and effect, that part of teaching was widespread in the India region at that time. And then through the great masters, as these lineage masters, Dorje, Sri Singha, when they have received the teaching, they often practiced in solitude. It was not really widespread at all. It only began to become widely spread, this teaching in the Tibetan, when the teaching had passed when the teaching had propagated into the Tibetan regions.
当然，在印度也是我们所说的印度有80成就者，80大成就者，这些都是因为修密法成就的，这些都是印度人，不是藏人。而且在这个加波恩扎波的国王得到了这个密法之后，后来就是整个村庄的人，他们就是修密法的人，后来全部都是就是红光成就，这样整个村庄人做后来的没有，就是成就了这样，有这样的历史记载。
Of course, there are also the 80 Mahasiddhas that they are all in India. These 80 Mahasiddhas are all Indian nation, that they are actually accomplishments through the practice of tantric teaching. And as well as as we mentioned earlier, King Njambo, after he received the tantric teaching, as well he and his fellow people began to practice, such at the end that they were able to attain the accomplishment in which the entire village have disappeared. So this is truly the accomplishment that I've attained.
再请问一个问题，就是这个上三乘这个马哈阿努阿迪一切，那就不同的因缘有这个法。那请问一下，他们在修学的时候是有这个次第的吗？还是就是说你可以直接就是学阿迪一切，而不需要前面有马哈或是阿努一切，他们有一些次第的需要学习吗
？OK。
So the question is regarding the Maha Anu Adi Yoga. Because of these teachings, you may require different types of karmic connection to encounter these teachings. But the question is there like a systematic requirement that you have to follow on, like a path that you need to follow in terms of receiving these teachings, or it's something that can be skipped, such as you can skip out Maha Anu Yoga and then go to the Adi Yoga, etc.
这个就根据个人的根基，有些人的话就是直接可以，也不用马哈瑜伽、马哈阿瑜伽这些外事不行，这些都不用直接切入大圆满。比如说前面的我们大圆满所需的条件前行这些全部完成了以后，就是直接修大圆满，这样成就的人也很多。有些呢就是一步一步的来。首先学习文思外序部，然后内序部，内序部里面的马哈瑜伽、安利瑜伽，然后阿底瑜伽，这样一步一步的上去的也有，是都有的。这个不一定说是一定要一步一步的全部学上去，就是跟着个人的根基。像就是近几年以来，在藏地陆陆续续出现很多的红光成就者，就是这些你可以看一下他们的这个历史，根本没有学过马哈瑜伽，可能一定也没有学过安利瑜伽的，大部分就是直接前行这些修完就学大圆满，然后就是成就的很多。
The answer is that it's really depending on the individual faculties. Some disciples, some students don't require the systematic approach of going through Maha, Anu, Yoga, Shriya, Upa, etc. They can go straight to the Adi Yoga after they have fulfilled or satisfied the requirements, such as the preliminary practices, in order to engage the Adi Yoga practice. And there's actually many of them attained accomplishments as well through this route. And as on the other hand, some people also took the systematic approach. They began with the outer tantric teachings, Shriya, Upa, etc., and then Maha, Anu, and then finally they go to the Adi Yoga, or they also have attained accomplishment as well. So that also applies. In the recent times, that many of these we see news of many the practitioners who attain rainbow body in the Tibetan region in recent days, that many of these accomplished masters, they probably have not really learned much of the Maha Yoga teaching or the Adi Yoga teaching. Many of them have finished the preliminary practice, and then they began the Dzogchen teaching, and then they were able to attain accomplishment as well. So this really depends on the individual faculties.
那今天我们就开始做回向了。
Now we'll begin the dedication marriage.
我南的也当知对吧？你同你你比的那么看见，一个南知罗弄对吧？这本土的主啊主而说，这个长节那当说是今天当的刚人主而。Ayam Dita Ramjira Sando Shanjira Sande Shoji Kali Jana Jinjeta Dita Jajira Yotsu Dombaraju Shanju Jon Chonsa Jalwa Dom Sanje Jiji Rata Kawa Shoji Simjina Kana Jinjeta Dita Tata Dami Diraju Kuwa Kenji Chuji Donan Nambaraju Janreba Dabara Shanju Shuba Dana Danju Jung Rua Kandu Jiva Dabra Jiva Kandu Jumbu Jiva Na Tata Dana Rata Jovas Java Kanji Jizu Lojirade Zongu Shuba Yonzur Doji Jiva Shuba Jimida Yongtaba Tata Majin Jimi Jum Hai Gata Tata Dojin Kala Turgun Tata Mei Ganam Wa Benji Dan Chitam Bar Tamche Kada Dabi Chitam Kijong Baru Sina Radon De Chanchu Sina Nayong Jima Juba Gana Bebra Tirba Ta Teta Mare Yonsu Shawan Lidon Yomo Deji Dina De Jordan Chikin Roar Nazi Chitra Kamu Jim Choba Jim Yinda Namkara Toba Mitra Janga Chanda Shona Chitam Bara Nator Dungala Rata Jabarachi Deva Tala Dova Kango Jon Dova Namjira Nana Kambar Chanju Joba Yonzur Doji Jon Sinjina Dava Shubun Dungarachi Jambo Joba Dana Raton Jon Maang Kaba Shindu Jon Raga Chudon Tambara Kanjoba Teta Dana Dada Dobarachi Yedon Hanam Tamne Sinji Chon Shuba Tohon Dhamma Shudu Dala Bhagara Dobi Topo Da Zombo Shuba Randa Dumbana Yeda Dayan Dada Chakra Sho Yeda Daga Naya Yedma Sanji Tinji Kurin Gombo Na Mazma Dada Dagi Java Garba Gana Mijo Vara Yeda Layan Shuba Chachir Yavanamji Dambu Chudin Jan Chanju Juba Ganda Navarashi Sambo Juba Navara Joma Yon Maang Kalva Ganda Chakra Juba Tamji Dayon Korwana Sonama Yeshi Damdan Mandan Advan Shirva Damdan Namkara Dan Yundan Kinji Mandan Dodan Duchi Damdan Damni Jannam De Jandira Sanji Manjava Sanji Nam Anje Jiji Wina Shubala Chanju Japa Chujon Edramani Tamji Shonzu Yon Tanzan Chunga Dyusum Tanyi Anje Jamsu Janum Jamsu Dan Kaba Jamsu Shojon Rantan Sonju Yana Jamsu Dagadaji Jawa Kenya Yana Nanda Jawa Ganji Samba Chujina Yana Sanje Sanja Dada Jubel Java Damji Ta Kordo Dhanam Rata Korvai Ila Gayan Sanyamanza La Loye Toji Datra Rantan Maung Kalpa Damji Jubraya Kachi Shiki Dotyan Jubraya Maya Kalva Jusuma Sati Da Kachi Chashi Jine Jubraya Yusum Soba Mei Sange Kan Deta Kachi Chila Dagi Teta Gana Choyra Da Chimara Chiva Nandra Toji Kaya Dyusuma Daga Jambo Ka Teta Duchi Tonga Mungara Chitra Mali Sonam Tamche the Java Taka Sonama Kona. Kano Manjun Jitin Duman, Sanjur Prasanjam Kolo. Debara Santa Dom, Gombo Kunji Bongo Dansu. Kanda Mirur Dansu Kananda, Kani Boye Tomba Doda. Kanda Yonzu Shukin Konanda, Kanda Chapa Chapa. Kani Sona Doda, Chapa Mipra Jiru Yeji. Kira Tandam Tanda Doda Ki, Sanju Dona Yanda Kukara. Diji Don Nonsa Tanje Jan, Tumon Tona Kanda Yobra. Diji Dona Dome Rashi Jan, Lowo Chupi Dona Dobra. Janamar Janto Nagara Tanje Jan, Sinjiner Janto Tana Nagara. Junar Janto Ratan Tomsi Jan, Yeji Janto Ratan Dobra. Shubha Janto Nagara Tanje Jan, Mulmar Janto Yonsa Dobra. Sanjay Janto Ratan Chushi Jan, Karva Janto Ramekyo Chakai. Kaya Yosuna Shapi Jarvaya, Chanchu Shupi Mulman Shikan. Sambo Shupi Sanju Sanjay Tekana Taka Malir Tokan. Java Kinji Siji Tawata, Kanga Mana Kanda Sanji Shan. Kiva Tidon Tombra Chapi Jir, Kiva Dapa Tanje Rata. Jita Nodon Yinjo Nanda Jan, Choba Nanda Jan Mayon Tata. Wa Zong Kiva Chindava, Chindra Najon Dipon. Hindi Kiva Zombo Japi Je, Jamura Chinna Bonum Japaraji. Kalba Kanda Mijuva, De Java Malir Logan. Choba Dom Tayo Matir, Yundana Najon Tato Mekaraji. Choba Tami Bala Nini Chan, Veda Choba Tanjita Tabara. Namkin Taku Jirwa Chitamba, Sijin Mali Tayan Dijan. Chitang Nidon Yung Tajirba, Taka Mon Tayan Chitang. Kayan Choji Shanam Taiba, Rinjin Jadi Garva Nala. Adam Bayi Devim Chonam Chan, Sangha Tijita Karbara Karva. Kanga Mo Jarbo Zedoni, Shanchi Shoko Jizaramu. Aji Tayan Dapa Jibana, Sonam Dapa Chonda Tijira. Kanga Zonchu Morma Dadabe, Jina Naso Taji Boraji. Namba Moa Yina Noam Kai Deon Sijira. Teta Nibarani Devaranto, Zetayon Teta Lepro. The Sambo Deon Sindavara, Teta Ambro Meto Teji. Tamil Tagur Jibana, Ganga Mishi Wanga Jibata. Zambo Chopa Juna, Yuda Mario Zushman. Yeshi Don Zudon Tanam, Rudon Kator, Don Dangar. Don Mumbo Dimutu, Jijan Sambo Kanan Sugar. Sanju Jong from the Dinner Joe, Sony Sinjin Kajir Dindu. Sanju Sonjin Koro Randa Koro, the Nardon Jiba. Kaya Zombo Shubi Munda, Chawa Don Malona. Rambang Sanjim Chen, Sanjim Sola Sanjim Masi. Jabrava Chandra Kimbada, Kanda Sambo Deyon Dejan. Eda Kinjir Jis Dolo Shir, Dewa Data Tanjira Randu. Yusum Shabi Jawa Tanjiji, Moa Kama Chukut Nobati. Taka Giva Sava Tekanjam, Sambo Chuchira Randu Kor. Danan Chivu Jijita Chirpana, Kirpa Tanjira Danan Jisra. Nawa Dai Tirkoni, Deva Chanji Jandira Randu. Tirkoni Mona Tata, Tanji Mali Mundar Jirvaras. Tita Mali Taka Yosaka, Tikin Chita Tanjin Kabari. Jami Jumbra Zona Gava, there, Pamo Damba Shinda Dili. Kai Jari Monsunda, Muntan Bayan Dagi Tigo. Kirda Daga Montana Rato, Trupa Mambo Shiva Chanjai. Oji Shomji Nansi Yon, Sunja Nala Kamba Mambo. Zongo Chubi Mona Dombaye, Giva Junda Daga Jisaka. In a row, Mona Giva Nama, Tachi Shika Tanji Jor. Kaya Zongo Shuba Danobe, Sonam Dai Damba Kondo. 我这么了就了什么呢？我把你这样的个头发，我们这种的当中国头，他一多跟那孩子，这中国人民中的，那从你怎么马里东个说。